So I am often asked how to cook a steak. How you cook a steak, man? I'm going to show you how to cook a steak. But before we actually get to the cooking process, we have to start with preparing the steak. And when you go to a grocery store, you often find this as your steak, right? And it's fine, right? This is choice grade. But if you look here, there's a lot of moisture in there and it's pretty soft. And then right here, it's a lot more leathery and there is not as much moisture. And what we did was, I have kind of come up with a new kind of quick dry age. It's not true dry aging, but it's really gonna help get a lot of that moisture out of your steak and help it cook better. And what you do is you salt the steak. And these steaks, as you can see, are about 1 inch thick. And what you wanna do is take salt and cover the steak completely in salt. Both sides, all sides. Flip it over, right, with the salt. Add more salt. And then, because it's 1 inch thick, you're gonna rest that in your refrigerator for an hour. So it's 1 hour per inch. So if you have a 2-inch steak, you're gonna go about 2 hours. 3-inch steak, you can go about 3 hours. And you put that, rest it right in the refrigerator, uncovered with the salt for an hour. Once that happens, you take it out, you rinse it in the sink, get rid of all that salt, and then you're gonna take your steak, put it on a wire rack, place it in your refrigerator. Remember, this will be rinsed off of all the salt. Place it in your refrigerator overnight uncovered. And the rack allows the air to circulate around the steak and it will continue to dry out. All right, so the steak has rested in the refrigerator all night. So before we put the steak in the pan, first we want to salt and pepper it, and that's all I like to do for seasoning. You'll see there'll be aromatics coming in later to add more flavor. Go lightly with the salt simply because we already salt cured the steak, and then be generous with your black pepper. We have a special technique for cooking the steak, and that's what we're gonna do. And when you cook your steak, you always wanna have a nice heavy pan. I love using cast iron, right? So we get the pan nice and hot. And the first step, see, this is a little bit of a process. You gotta be willing to go through this, but it's so worth it in the end. You're not outside in the weather, the bugs, the grill, the rain. All you have is inside, you have a nice pan, and we add a little bit of oil. Just a little bit of oil. Our handy dandy tongs. And we're gonna take the steak. Now here's where it's very different than a lot of people. When you're told often to cook your steak, it's all about never touching the steak. Put it down on one side, leave it there for 5 minutes and flip it. But that's not what we're gonna do. What we're actually gonna do is flip the steak every 10 to 30 seconds. And what you'll see is it'll start to develop a crust. At first it doesn't look so great, I understand that, but you just got to keep going, keep flipping the steak. You always want to turn away from you so that you're not splashing yourself with the oil. Okay, so why are we doing this? Why are we doing this flipping of the steak every 10 seconds? It's really simple. Think to yourself, rotisserie chicken, right? Bird is always turning, and what it's doing is it's evenly cooking, and it's cooking within its own juices. When we create the rotisserie kind of feel for cooking the steak, what we end up doing is a very even cook throughout the steak. And one of the reasons is you see here, when we have the upside up, this is cooling off, and all the heat's coming from the bottom. So by rotating the steak, what we're doing is we're keeping the steak an even heat all the way through, and it creates an even cook all the way through. So when we get the steak to this point from the rotisserie, the last step is what we call butter basting. So it's a little butter into the pan, little aromatics like rosemary and garlic, and then you just take this and you just baste this over top of your steak. That's it, folks. It's that simple, and this is a delicious, delicious way to have your steak. So you can see here, it's perfectly cooked from edge to edge at perfect temperature all the way through. That's why you cook a steak like that. I gotta give this bad boy a taste. So tender because of the salting process. Juicy, so much flavor. That's how you cook a steak.